Most people think Web3 is about tokens, hype, and chat. But the real story is just more simpler and actually more serious. It's about shipping products that handle real value in public with real consequences. Welcome to Web3, dear builders. I am Dennis, and in today's video, we'll be addressed for founders and builders in the US and EU who want a practical view of what actually matters when you go from idea to production. No hype, no market predictions, no legal advices, just insights from the field. We'll cover the traps that catch teams once real value gets in place, when blockchain actually is not the appropriate tool, why tokens don't magically solve product problems, what changes the moment you go live, and what mature security looks like when systems evolve in production. If you're thinking, I want to build in Web3, but I don't want to learn the hard way, then you are in the right room. Let's get to it. Today, I'm joined by Olivier, who works across Web3, security, and the founder journey. And I'm just going to let you, Olivier, to present yourself.
Yes, thanks, Danny, for hosting me today. Your introduction sounds really like the basic 101 the founders might need. And I will do my best to reply to those questions. Even if I'm not an entrepreneur, I saw this as the side on the side of more the consultant and being with founders along their journey. So it's always easier to speak when you're not really doing all the hard work it is to be an entrepreneur, But that's why, those people really have my respect, because it's something maybe I'm not equipped to do. Because I'm not sure everybody can be an entrepreneur. But that's why I like to mingle with this crowd and try to help along the way, because that's where I feel the best and where I have most value, I think, to bring. So if you want a little background on how I entered this world, it was mostly by accident 6 years ago. I was chatting with a few lawyers, and I noticed that there were some holes in what they were perceiving in terms of risk. And then I started to read more and more about regulation, and especially AML or market abuse. And I was focused on those two subjects. And then I made it a job, So I was hired by a few law firms, and then I helped a bit more than 20 crypto companies get their licenses, and worked with 47 companies so far, to help them with their go-to-market or the product market fit, and also to understand where to locate their business for, let's say, the best chances to launch. So after, let's say, 5 years of compliance, I decided to jump into a sales role because along my compliance journey, I had a lot of propositions to push RegTech companies on the market. And that's where I noticed that probably the best founders of Web3 companies I knew were the ones who took the matter of compliance early, And so this will be probably the next subject of our chat. And lately I joined a company that does something that I think is quite clever, because when we talk about Web3, we have to understand that there is a lot of Web2 in it, And and very often those parts, for example, around smart contracts that are tied to Web2, let's say, technological stacks, they are a vector of vulnerabilities and risk, And so I joined this company called named DEDGE Security, and it's the first company that brought a concept from Web2 and translated it to Web3, which is the security posture management. Basically, on the market, most of the companies, they do punctual audits of their smart contracts. And we offer a solution that monitors continuously what happens within and around the smart contracts.
Okay.
So, yeah, I joined this company because I thought it was a hole on the market, but it was also a hole in terms of taking into account the biggest vulnerabilities we are seeing right now on the subject of Web3.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for the introduction, and we are really eager now to just address the next questions and see your input for them. Okay, let's just start and kick things off. From what you've seen already with this experience that you have in this field, what's the biggest misconception that gets Web3 founders into trouble once real value gets in?
I'm not sure there is one that is the biggest, but yeah, there are a few. But on top of my head, I would say, so sometimes you think your product is finished and you put it on the market, but it's more like a baby, I would say, it's a newborn. And the newborn, you still have to watch over the infant for him to stumble when it walks, And so, yeah, many people are noticed because, Web3 is very good at delivering fast. So that's a very strong point of Web3. It's the speed. And in business, speed is very important. And but speed is good, but if you can handle it. And to handle it, you have to make sure that you can watch and have people watch what you do. Because you need a different set of eyes on your projects. If not, you're on a one-track mind, and you might miss some stuff along the way. And so it's very important that in pre-launch, during development, during the launch and after launch, there is a continuity of, let's say, observing what you do and checking for mistakes and vulnerabilities along the way. So I would say that a misconception is that people think code is low and then there is no operation involved, But I think at this point, the builders, they become more like risk managers. And so I would suggest that maybe, the concept of pollinization is very important, I think, in Web3, because many people in Web3...
If you could define this for those who are watching, like when we are referring to pollinization, what this means.
Yeah, so pollinization, for example, is I have a sales call with a company, and I bring along that sales call tech from our company, and he will put some inputs in the prospect's minds coming from his expertise, and we compare notes, and we talk about things, And so, for example, you have compliance that can introduce some concepts to the tech side, and the tech side introduce some concepts to the sales side and the product side and everything. So it's very important, to be fast. Sometimes you have to be one-track minded, develop. But it's also good to have inputs of other types of knowledge and experience along the way. And so I would say that a builder at one point becomes a risk manager. Because when you launch something, you need to be aware of the risk that might be tied to your project, but also to the tech side, So when I talk about pollinization, is that the best teams I've seen so far are often led by a team of founders who understood this concept of pollinization early on and integrate things from the start. For example, compliance by design, thinking about the regulatory risks that are right now impacting their project, but also in the future. So anticipated the future of regulation, And then when I say pollinization is also good because we talk a lot about this bridge between Web3 and the institutions, like banks and asset managers, funds. And it's good that those two sides, they talk a lot because the standards are not the same, the expectations are not the same. the way to evaluate risk is often not the same. One side wants to move fast, the other side has to move very carefully, because one mistake can lead to a reputational damage that has huge consequences, And so all those things are called pollination, for lack of a better word. Is that, it comes from the bees coming from one flower to another, and it creates the honey with different flavors, and it's a mix of flowers that create a good honey. So it's the same for a project. If you see it, it's a discussion that is a bit on a meta level, but the easiest way to see it is that a good founder or a good builder has some concept of compliance, have some concept of risk management, some concept of product market fit, or some concept of sales, and so the best founders I've seen so far, they went very far in their journey, for example, on the code level. And the way that they are very far in that journey, they can apply the same principle and lesson they learned to study law, for example, to study regulations, to study marketing. And then there is another misconception also that I found a bit detrimental sometimes to the merge between Web3 and the institution, is the lack of process. If you put yourself in the shoes of a bank, for example, you're used to work with Big Four, for example, consulting firms, and they come with a lot of different process. You have various steps, milestones. The project management side is pristine, because it makes years and years that they refined that, And very often when I brought Web3 teams to a bank, I would notice that the bank couldn't understand really where the Web3 company want to go, because there is a lack of, because it's clear on the Web3 side, it's clear in people's mind, where they want to go, what they want to see, and how they will do it. But the way to deliver it has to be cadenced and has to be set in a way that the bank can welcome this. And those create a lot of friction and misunderstanding. And so the Web3 side, I think, has to probably structure a way to work with the outside world that is a bit more clear, using the templates that already worked before Web3 came on the market. And the institution, on the other side, I noticed 5 years ago, they tried to understand what they would call the crypto crowd, but they didn't understand them. So they hired more and more people who could make the bridge, so they integrate a lot of people coming from Web3. So the dialogue is getting better and better. That's what I see. But still, if you're a founder in a Web3 company, and at one point you want to target the institutions, if that's your goal, it's good to think about risk exposure, checking on your code, because you cannot just give a sum up to a bank and say, okay, my contract is fine, just trust me, and let's make a bug bounty and one audit, and okay, let's roll on. It's way more complicated than that. And it was fine a few years ago, but now I think the industry has some standards, and the Web3 has to catch up with the legacy finance standards. So the banks, asset managers, funds. So those are maybe misconception, is that code is low, so no operation needed, so it's okay. I can go fishing now, everything rolls. Sadly, if someone can join you at 3 a.m. because there's a problem, then maybe it's not a project that is bulletproof, And that's where I'm sorry for shamelessly plugging the company I represent, but that's where we enter in a way, because
No, please.
we help on the code level, from the start to the launch, and even after the launch, to check that everything works on the right track, within the right rails, That's the first. And then we give tools on the institution side and the Web3 side, governance tool. So people can check where their project is at, who does what, and what's the quality of what is delivered, and the type of risk people expose themselves, which is also a tool to make Web2 and Web3 understand a bit each other at the code level and at the smart contract level.
Okay. If it's to put like maybe in one sentence for founders and builders, what actually they should be aware of, like, or take in consideration as a sum up?
To not be just focused on the code and the tech, because life is very complicated, and you need to take into account this complexity of the environment. And the thing is, when you're good at something, you tend to rely on it. And I think the best founders I've met so far, they have 5 or 6 different people in their head. They have a salesman in their head. They have a lawyer in their head. They have a compliance person in their head. And it's not to be an expert in each of this field, but just know enough and understand enough so you can hire the best people to help you along the way, or find the right companies to consult. But still, as a founder, you are a generalist in a way. Maybe you have 2 or 3 strong points, like coding, like law, everything. But the idea is just to, as much as you want to make your tech stack bulletproof, it's the same logic with your brain. Your knowledge stack has to be bulletproof, And for this, you can understand the logic of different verticals and hire the right people to help you with those verticals, But at least you need to understand that those verticals exist and that they are very important. I can give you a few examples, in reality, in my practice. For example, I would say 60% of the crypto licenses I got, they were for companies that had absolutely no vision where they wanted to go.
Whoa.
Because they had a very specific idea on what the product does and everything, but they didn't anticipate some regulations to come, So for example, if those companies would have hired the type of law firm that is not there just to charge people to get a crypto license, but is there to think about the future and the consequences, And you have a few of those law firms around the world where the lawyer is a regulatory wizard, I would say. And he can smell almost where the next move will go. So this saves you a lot of money, because sometimes you prepare for years for a product, you invest a lot of money, and then you have a new set of law coming out and you're in the wrong jurisdiction doing the wrong thing, and you just have to move or close, Or you didn't anticipate the cost of compliance, So for example, a lot of founders that are mostly 2021 to 2024, I would say they would underestimate the cost of compliance, And then you have another misconception is that people go full DeFi, and they think, okay, I'm not subjected to any regulation, I can do what I want in my corner and everything. You can do that, but at one point you have to deal with people who are regulated, And they will ask you, some, some checks. They will ask you some audits. They will want to see what you do, specifically, because they cannot expose their clients to any type of silly risk, jeopardizing the whole company. So as long as you stay in a non-regulated, area of the market, why not, But you take a chance that after you have built a company that is not maybe able to get closer to the regulated market, So this you have to also take into account when you think about building something, Is what I build, meant to stay in that area of the market? Or do I want my offer to touch the regulated market? And then did I think about compliance by design, integrated risk when I started my project? So I think all those components, they are at the same level. Innovation is at a high level for sure, but people tend to focus maybe too much on innovation. But innovation with, compliance and risk management, to me, they are at the same level as market, sales, because you can have the best product in the world, but if you're not allowed to sell it, or if it has some risk exposure that is too high, it's a waste of time, the whole thing. So all those things have to be integrated at the same moment and at the same level of intensity. If you don't do that, you will spend a lot of years trying to figure out where to move next, how to pivot, because, this law doesn't allow you to do that. And, this type of companies, they don't want to work with me, So you save yourself a lot of time by preparing, by integrating all those questions from the start. So this is maybe the misconception and let's say the weak point of Web3 founders I met. Of course, there are some who understood that from the start, so it's good for them. But a lot of crowd, you had a lot of hype 3-4 years ago, and people would just jump into various projects. And that's how I met Cyril from your company. He was studying a lot of pitch decks we had on our table, and we could spot right away if the founders, they thought about the consequences of what they were doing in terms of exposure to risk, or in terms of underestimating the cost of compliance and the cost of legal and also the geo arbitrage. Selecting the right jurisdiction to start is also something you have to think about. Because you have places that move faster than others, And as a founder, you want to cash in as fast as possible, because you want to be fast launching the product, but you want to be fast also starting to charge clients for what you do. And as the founding game changed also, like 5 or 6 years ago, you would put blockchain into an executive summary or everything. People would invest, Nowadays, it's a bit harder to get funding just on the basis that you have a blockchain project or a Web3 project, So, you have to be well prepared even to just talk to VCs, nowadays. The hype is a bit gone, and the money went to AI. So as a Web3 company, which is good. I like the fact that the money went to AI, because now when you want to get money for a Web3 project, you need to come up with something that is real and that brings value on the market. And the quality of the team also will be checked, And I noticed, that's my experience, but you are too crypto, you have way more experience than me on that. But before, I would say 5 years ago, you would come up with 2 young guys or girls that had a few experiences here and there, but they had a project and they had maybe solid technical abilities, They would get founded. But nowadays, it's not enough, Very often, they want to see a team that is more diverse in terms of experience, knowledge, and even, let's say, age bracket. Because it's good to have someone with gray hair in your company, because he can slow you down on some mistakes you will do. But it's good to have young people also to have, this energy to conquer the world, It's good to have people who have been exposed to maybe law or regulations, people who have been exposed to risk management, So the teams, I think they have to be a bit more diverse. Back in the day, you would have like 4 people who are just good at coding, which is amazing to be. But I even see, if I look at the teams in my former clients, they brought some people from with a background coming from banks, You find some 50-year-old person working in a team of 25 years old founders, So he feels refreshed because he has the energy of the youth. But they benefit a bit from the experience of that guy and the language coming from institutional partners and clients. Because in the end, it's a way. So not so long ago, you would go to events. Let's take Switzerland, and you would have banks on one side and the Web3 crowd on the other side. You know, and now you go to events and everybody's in the same room. You know. So the language changed probably on both sides, you know, but I think the Web3 crowd became a bit more, I know they want to do their own thing in their own culture, which is what brings innovation. But you can have a strong culture and still be able to talk to other people coming from another culture, which is let's say the banks. And so the bridging is quite interesting, and that's why I work in that field, because it's almost like a anthropological experience in the end, you know.
Interesting, really interesting. Actually, on the point that you made, one question seems now that it makes sense. When is actually blockchain the wrong tool?
So blockchain is, how can I put that? Blockchain, in my opinion, is the wrong tool if you can use something else instead.
Okay.
You know, so I don't know, maybe I will get hit for that, but
probably.
No, there used to be a time you would put blockchain everywhere just because it was blockchain, and you didn't you took more into consideration the characteristic of blockchain and not the characteristic of the project you want to do or where you want to implement it, you know? So why? So there is this huge company. It's a German company. They build most of the factories on the planet. Okay, I will not mention them, but
okay.
They invited me to their office, and they have a research center. And they asked me a bit the same question: is where can we put blockchain in what we do? You know? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe try to ask yourself the question the other way around. You know, starting from blockchain, what can you build from there? Because the characteristic of the blockchain, maybe they will help you build something that you don't have yet. You know. Because they were a research center, you know. So I say, if you want to do research, maybe start from the blockchain characteristic and see if it can help something either on existing line of product or not, you know. So they came with the idea that smart contract, they might replace a few other systems within their chain of machines, you know, to give commands. And so, so they introduced the smart contracts in some factory lines, you know. But the question is very important because for the moment, this company was working very fine without blockchain, you know.
Okay.
So just adding blockchain into it would have brought probably nothing if they didn't think about really what are the characteristics of blockchain and is it useful here, there, and there. So sometimes it's an answer and sometimes it's really not. And if it's not, maybe there are some things that develop faster, you know, and don't require the characteristic of blockchain, you know. I mean,
what would be a warning sign that they are forcing on the blockchain idea, even if they should not?
If you spend too much time trying to figure out why you need blockchain, you know, people, I don't know, the last few years, the people would start, I think, because they were so fanatic about blockchain, you know, which I understand.
Yeah.
But you can be fanatic about blockchain and still see that, okay, it has no place to be here, but I should maybe triple my efforts to put it there, you know, and I will gain more. So when it's the right fit, then, no worries. You will see it right away because things will take off. And but sometimes you spend too much time to look for use cases. You know? And the whole industry was really weird because it was the first time in my life I would see an industry that was looking for use cases for technology and not the other way around, you know. And so we have to, I invite people to really refrain themselves from trying to put blockchain everywhere and take their time and think if it's the right move to do or not, you know. So you can be fast when you implement, but you can be very slow when you think about it, you know.
Okay. Does this also apply to tokens, like the same way of thinking, when you decide if a product needs a token or not?
I think tokens they're almost a thing from the past.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that, or why do you feel like this?
Because a lot of the founding coming from token, it was mostly noise and hype.
Yeah.
And you don't want to. I mean, it depends on it depends on your set of values and your psychology. You know, you can use other people's money to have your project bubbling very fast, but there is not much behind it to make it bulletproof for the future, or there is too much miscorrelation between the token value and the value you bring on the market. So those things are very important, I think, to check. And I think people are less keen lately to just buy tokens. But maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm no expert on tokenomics, and I don't want to make market prediction. But what I see is that founding projects starting via tokens, it's a bit something that is two or 3 years old.
Okay.
I think real steady money, convincing high-level investors who understand what you do, this has a lot of value, and maybe people should focus on that. I've been in a few companies that raised money, and it even helped me to do my job, for example, in sales better, because my forecasting has to be better. The way I evaluate market share has to be better. I cannot just throw numbers and then hope one VC will be generous enough to believe me and put money on the table, But maybe a few years ago it was easier, because then you just had a nice deck with blockchain and everything, and people would fancy investing in your company. Now it's a bit harder, but I think you should choose the hard path when it comes to that, because it helps you to prepare solid foundation for your company that are worth spending time on, because it gives you strong legs for the future. So I know a few projects that have tokens that are almost now to zero, but the project are still going strong, because maybe those projects, they relied a bit on the beginning on the token, but after they quickly understood that they have to go a different route and offer something of substance, So it's almost like the founders, they pivoted in their head, and recreated themselves and their project to something that is a bit more grounded and steady,
Okay. Let me see if I understood this right. When it comes to blockchain, if your product cannot get created without it, don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't improve anything with it, if the characteristic of blockchain, they don't bring value to the project you try to integrate or to develop with blockchain, what's the point,
Right. And
Then,
the token means that if you cannot raise money the hard way, it's not a safe bet.
Maybe you don't have the fundamentals to be in the long term on the market,
Right.
But that's just my opinion. I understand that people have different opinions, but that's how I'm built, and that's what I saw so far, mostly. So you always find exceptions, but the thing is, as we speak, I need to generalize. If not, we cannot speak. So you can always find one or two counter-examples to what I say, or even more. I don't know, but here I'll just share a bit what I saw and my experience so far. And I saw that the company that I helped getting a license like 5 years ago, they didn't rely on tokens, They rely on very solid and long-term partnerships with VCs and different investors or partners. But
Okay.
So it's everything that goes fast, I think, can fall fast.
Okay.
So it's the same with the founding, and it's the same with the tech stack you use, And so we talk about blockchain, but we also have to talk about everything that is plugged on the blockchain, And there might be way more flexibility to the business and use cases, you can put on the market.
What are some non-obvious costs that founders miss or underestimate? Yeah, non-obvious costs when the product is live in a Web3 space.
So there is a battle for. So there is the HR cost. The battle for good profiles is on, and if you want to hire good people, it comes with a cost. So this is very often underestimated. Then if the project needs to be compliant, then there is the cost of compliance, of course, that is always underestimated. If you take just the basic salary of a good compliance officer, it becomes crazy, because you have very few profiles that can understand compliance and Web3 and merge all this and to be good from cybersecurity to AML to, so sometimes you want to hire someone that is good at almost everything, and this comes with a cost, or you need to create a team, but then it's also a cost, So most of the project I saw failing the last few years was due to cost of compliance,
Okay. Is there a solution to prepare for it, or maybe anticipate the costs for your Web3 product, based on your experience?
Yeah, I mean, when you know it exists, you can already provision some money for it, and you can, I have a few former clients. What they did is they raised money for the technological side, developing the product, then putting the product on the market. But then they want to raise a second time, and they go to the VC, and the VC sees that most of the money will go to compliance. And so there is no VC who wants to put money on compliance, So it's good to have maybe your investors aware from the start, and you too aware from the start, but I understand, you're a founder, you think about the product, the market and everything. And so very often compliance comes last, cybersecurity comes last, There is a country in Europe, for example, I cannot mention, but I did a few audits to see the gap between the level of maturity of the companies on cybersecurity and what was expected by the regulators. The gap was really huge, but why? Because some of the companies, they just thought, okay, I have the good product, I have the market, I start to make money, and I keep basic maintenance of my cybersecurity team, and solutions. And same sometimes for compliance, I would see companies in that country, but it's, smaller companies, they had to do that because they cannot afford sometimes some tools, but they do things manually, manual checks and everything. So you can save, a few bucks starting like that, but you cannot keep operating like that, because what a Web3 company has to understand is that sooner or later it will become a financial institution,
Interesting.
It has to become one.
Yeah.
if you want to be regulated, you have to. And if you want to work with regulated entities that can bring a lot of money to your project, you have to become a financial institution, you know?
Right.
So the shift from startup to financial institution is usually where things go wrong, you know? Because then if you take a company that I don't know, if you just do custody, for example, or something very simple like even you know, swapping from crypto to another one, you will have the need for AML tool, you know, KYT tool, KYC tool, market abuse detection tool, you know, cybersecurity audits. You have to be in line with so many regulations and everything. So you might need a lawyer. You might need a firm that is there to do regulatory watch, you know, to just take into account the new laws that are coming in, and maybe you operate on different jurisdictions, you know, so you have to adapt each setting of the tool and each way to check for regulatory novelty, depending on various countries, you know. So you need to organize yourself like a financial institution in the end, you know. So yeah, you can start fast, you can develop fast and everything, but at one point, there is no way you can escape the fact that you become a financial institution. You know? And the sooner the founders understand that, I think the better it is for the project in the long run. That's what I observed in the last 6 years. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's just so you can stay a bit rebellious to find your edge when it comes to innovation. But at one point, you might get swallowed by all the processes, you know, and you will become a full financial institution, no matter the size of your project. Because we saw, for example, with the European regulation called MICA. I know some of your audience is maybe more on the US side, but I operate from Europe. So what you see with you know, the regulation doesn't care if you're small or if you're big, you know. So if you're a small company starting, the same expectations are put on you as if you're a bank, you know. So for a bank, you know, so if you're a big bank, you can swallow the cost of compliance and all those things, you know, all those processes. But if you're a Web3 founder, you know, you need in your head to replace a lot of function and understand a lot of verticals to be on par with bigger players, you know. But I think it's not impossible, and I think it's quite good, and it's a very interesting challenge, because in a way the founder or the group of founders, they almost become like a full team of a big corporation, you know. And so with the technology, you know, I mean, you can use AI to learn a lot of things. You can find a lot of resources, people to hire as freelance for a part of for the beginning of the project, for example. I mean, all those things, you know, the flexibility, yeah, beats maybe the size, but you need to know the same thing, but maybe you can use the technology to be more flexible than the big players that can use a lot of resources to swallow the cost of compliance, for example, or risk management or cybersecurity.
Okay, let me see if I understood this right. Correct me if I'm wrong. So for Web3 project, you take compliance in as a cost from the beginning. At least you plan for it.
Always, no matter what.
Okay.
I don't care the rest of what you do, but this is very important. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's my experience. I saw several projects just fail because they couldn't afford compliance, and it was a bit sad to see that, you know. Really sad. But yeah, then they couldn't raise money because there was no justification, you know, for the investors. Like, okay, I will not give you money to pay for a few tools and hire a compliance officer and things like that, you know. So, but even if you stay on the non-regulated side, as I said, one day or another, you will get in touch with the regulated companies, and they will ask you for some standards. And so those standards have to be taken into account when you build the product.
Right.
If not, you need to change too many things, and it will cost you more if you don't anticipate. So you cannot. There is this famous quote from a movie called Margin Call. At one point, they ask the guy what's his job, as a CEO, and the guy replies that the job as a CEO is to guess what the music will be in the future, to understand. So
Right.
the founder has to be like that, Yes, to understand enough of, for example, regulation, to anticipate what can impact his business. And if he doesn't want to do that, you have a few companies willing to do that, Also, he can use companies like ours to check all along the way if the code is right, if he moves into the right direction, if the people he hires, for example, to write the smart contract, do it the right way, and that there's no mistake in terms of logic within, for example. And then you can check the whole development cycle of the product via our tool, but also using other type of experts, So
many companies, startups, or people in the Web3 think that like smart contracts bugs are like the big main thing. But from your experience and also the company that you work in, where actually are the real losses regarding security?
Everything that mixes the Web 2 and Web 3 stack, I would say, at this level, to take an analogy, your teeth are strong. The gum is also okay, but between the tooth and the gum, there is a space where things can enter, So if you look, the blockchain is the tooth. It's very solid technologically. The gum, let's say, it's the Web 2 components that are very solid because it's under scrutiny for a long time, because you have standards, you have tools that monitor continuously the risk linked to the Web 2. But the junction between Web 2 and Web 3, because when we talk about Web 3 project, it's not really a Web 3 project, because you always have to deal with Web 2 components, Yeah. So I would say the area where the Web 2 and the Web 3 merge, that's where you have a lot of troubles, because you have a lot of moving parts, And even if you launch the project and you cannot change your smart contract, but everything around the smart contract might evolve, and you have vulnerabilities there. So this is what we check for. But you can anticipate a lot of those future problems by starting to use a tool like ours that monitors all along the way the cycle of the development, But so it's pre-launch and after launch, So because everything that you correct costs a lot of money, and why I joined DEDGE Security, it's quite easy. It's a silly story. I was in Luxembourg in a bank, and they were operating a few smart contracts. And I had lunch with one of the tech guys, and I asked him, okay, but what happens between audits, And he looked at me and he said, nothing. So, and then I looked at him, I said, but you have 2 audits a year, and in between, nobody checks anything, It's, so that's when I Googled if there was a company doing continuous monitoring of smart contracts and their environment, And that's when I stumbled on the company I represent nowadays, DEDGE Security, because I was thinking it's totally crazy to leave it up to chance almost, like, okay, we have bug bounty at the beginning, we have audits, but all those things are reactive measures,
Yeah.
There was nothing proactive and going all along the cycle of the life and development of your smart contract journey, And so then I joined the company for that, yeah.
So you, as a founder, and for people that are watching, if you want to be proactive regarding the security of your product, the life cycle of the application in production, you need to get in contact with a company like yours, someone that can help you along this cycle to monitor, audit, check the security.
Yeah, I would say so, but we don't replace traditional audits. It's also very important, but it's a snapshot at one moment. And as I said, if you, for example, you're a Web3 studio and you hire a lot of developers for your smart contract and everything. We had the case, for example, of someone who had malicious intents, and wrote a few things to jeopardize the project, A few lines of code were put in a smart contract. Everything looked good from an audit perspective, but then when it was launched and you saw the behavior, then we could spot that there was something really not in line with the, let's say, the intent of the smart contract. You see? And so I hope it's not very often that we will see that, but sometimes you have people who want to say jeopardize some projects, You also have some people coding that hide mistakes sometimes, Also, our tool is very helpful because let's say you're a CTO and your CEO says, okay, but where does our projects, go? What's the timeline? What you guys are doing or everything? And as a CTO, you sometimes cannot explain in details what's happening on the code side, So you can use a tool like ours to just extract data to explain to your CEO, like, okay, we had like 3 alerts on that, 5 alerts on that. We are dealing with this mistake. We are changing this line of code and everything. So at least it's a tool also that can help you communicate, in the team and also check what the team does, and how they deal with alerts and everything. Because the tool will observe everything that is done around the code and in the code and extract the problems, and then you can deal right away with the problems. So it saves you a lot of time and it saves you a lot of money when you do audits, because then you have less also things to correct after a traditional audit, So basically, it's, it's like you want to check on your diet and do sport every day or regularly, or you want to eat what you want. And once a year you do a bit of sport, and so I think we need both, and it's like when you go to the doctor, there is like you can do a health check once a year, but you have no clear picture of your health, or you can do continuous monitoring of your health, and then you see where you're at, really, but you need both assessments. So it's the same. It's the same for the smart contract and their environment.
Okay. Now you just with this example, you just already answered my next question. So yeah. Okay. In a sum up, don't leave it to chance, and only in the beginning. It needs to be along the life cycle of the application. The security, it's a life cycle by itself, right?
Yeah. And it's the same thing. I mean, I'm not here to sell DEDGE security, so it's the same logic that could be applied to compliance. You cannot swallow everything about compliance just before launching, or after, or when a new regulation comes out. You need to be prepared very early. And as a founder, I think it's very good to be prepared for that, because sometimes you will hire compliance officers that are not ready themselves, And this I also saw. So I know the compliance people will hate me for that, but very often they wait for the last moment to change things. Very often I saw that, like you have a new regulation and okay, they will need time to implement it after, but then they will maybe buy the product way later, and then they have to catch up with the work that wasn't done for a year or two. But then there is a new regulation coming out, and they didn't even fix what was supposed to be fixed before, So if you're a founder, you need to be able to understand those dynamics, not to be fooled by your employees, for example, because
Right.
of course, you have majority of compliance people are very good people, but sometimes you hire people that wait for the last moment. And if you don't understand what is needed as a founder, you might rely on them too much, and then you have bad surprises. And it's the same with the code, you can have people say, okay, yeah, it's fine, we write, okay, the project is moving, okay, but you don't understand what's going on, So for example, if you're like me, you don't have any understanding of what's happening at the code level, you would need people to be able to explain it to you if you're a Web3 founder with no experience in code, because you can be fooled by anyone if not, So trust is very important, but be able to check what people do is probably more important, And for that, you need to understand the language and, let's say, the agendas of all those functions in your company.
Right.
So, yeah, most people are good employees. They work well, of course, but sometimes you still need to check what they do, how they do it, and where the project is at with the timeline, and the deadlines. And I've seen it in many Web3 companies. I've seen people discovering stuff under the carpet, like a few lines of codes that were not, let's say, put the right way, and then you pay twice, because everything that you don't prepare and you don't check after, when you have to change it, you pay twice, So it's the same for all the functions, cybersecurity, AML, market abuse detection, I don't know, code. Everything has to fit together and be understood by the founder, So a founder has to leave no stone unturned, basically, on every subject. So I don't know, if now I would be a founder, I would do something very simple. I would take a piece of paper and I would put all the things I need to know about and say, okay, on compliance, okay, I'm level 1 out of 10, So I need to catch up there, But maybe not on the technical side of compliance, and knowing all the laws and regulations, everything, but at least understand the logic and what is expected from people you will hire for that, So you can check what they do, And there is one thing that is also very good as a founder is you have to check the people who check.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that, for a while I was working in China, and I would send people checking what would happen in factories. But the people, they would go to that factory, let's say once a week, and after a while, they would become, let's say, too close, let's say friends, or they would get money from the factory to not check on everything, So the guy who checks, he gets money on my side and money on the other side, So he makes double the income to close his eyes on a few things, But then I have to hire someone that checks on the guy that checks, You see? So it's the same. For example, if you have a Web3 project and you use a tool, you have to be able to, and it's in many regulations, you have to be able to check what the tool does, at any moment. So you can rely on a tool to a certain extent, but what you will do with it, how you will use it, and in the end, it's like you and I, we probably use AIs, like the most famous ones. If you use it to understand regulations, sometimes I use it and what gets out is wrong.
Okay. It's actually a prediction machine. So
yeah, but you still have to use your brain, in the
right.
end. So no matter the team, no matter the tool, in the end, you're still in charge and use your brain to check the people or the systems that check, or to hire people who can check who checks, Because if you hire someone that checks a function in your company, after a while, they might not see a few things, because every day they see the same patterns and everything, but you hire someone from the outside and then you can spot something, So our tool helps to spot a bit from the outside what's happening. But after how you deal with the alerts and how you treat the problem, it's still on you, So the human part is still important. So the more the tool, in a way, the better the brain has to be. Because you can rely, but you have to check on what you rely on,
Right.
So yes,
this is like a practical suggestion for those who are the top of this Web3 product, like an entrepreneur or like a builder of his own idea. I think it can be like really helpful.
I mean, I called myself an entrepreneur like 25 years ago, and I was not. And
why? What did change?
It's easy. I saw a client a morning. We had a coffee, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to play golf in Morocco now." And I'm like,
"Okay."
I'm like, "Wow, that's a nice life." He said, "Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. You're not." I say, "So what's the difference? Explain to me." He said, "Look, I can go play golf, and my factory is still working. My salespeople are still selling. Money is still coming in, But you, if you leave, nothing works anymore. So you're not an entrepreneur. You're self-employed, So I was not an entrepreneur. And so, so of course he would come to the factory a few days a week and check, But he hired people who check for him, but he would check on them sometimes, So that basically an entrepreneur, you create a system, And if you cannot, as long as you cannot leave that system a bit alone, I would say the maturity of your project is still not good enough for you to do that. But also, maybe you're just not on the right track.
Okay.
So
you mentioned
tell me.
No. Finalize please the idea.
I didn't understand you. Sorry.
I said finalize the idea. I didn't know you have it. You still have it. Something to say.
This is DeFi is a bit different, because the purpose is to have, from what I understood, less human interaction possible, and the thing operates by themselves, But still, you need to monitor for risk constantly. And I've met with a few big DeFi protocols founders, and they are the most overworked persons I met, so far. So, I mean, the fantasy of things working by themselves, I've never seen them really, because everything is under attack always.
Okay.
And when you're successful, I know a few DeFi protocols that are quite successful. They are the target of many attacks, So they spend a good portion of their day dealing with security issues. And I'm thinking about one in particular. One of the founder, he understood quickly that he will be the target of many attacks, And so from the start, he integrated, he basically hired a company to be external cybersecurity. He just paid that company to be full-time cybersecurity team. He didn't want to hire at the beginning. Now he starts to hire a few, but he just looked on the market. Okay, those guys are the best. With what I'm building, I will be under attack for sure. I cannot afford with, let's say, the dozens of millions the investor put in my company. I cannot afford to be attacked like that, So a good portion of my budget, okay, maybe it's silly, but I will spend it on cybersecurity, So that's a founder that had the right vision at the right moment, and it's one of the most successful company in our ecosystem. Because they had the vision, but I think he put the same intensity in the vision, the product, the development, the speed, as in the defense, defending his company and his protocol of attacks,
Okay.
And if you show that you did everything you could to be bulletproof when it comes to covering those risks, it's easier to sign contracts with big institutions, which is why probably the company I mentioned, they signed deals with the biggest players in our industry. Because it's also a selling point, When you say, okay, I have a full-time team dedicated to this, that, we cover that risk, this, that. Yeah, people feel more secure giving you their money, So, I mean, being ready, being compliant, being bulletproof as much as you can on a cybersecurity front, having the optimized code as much as you can, dealing with all the technical environment with the best standards that exist, using the best tool that will help you along the way. All this is also a selling point, So you protect yourself, but you also show the world that you're really serious about what you do, and that they can put their logo next to your logo,
For all these elements that you mentioned, regarding the security, regarding having vision for the long term, doing like a self-reflection to note down your awareness at this point and what you actually need to be better and to understand all of these things. If you need to choose one trait or maybe quality that Web3 founder need to incorporate, what would be something that you would want to suggest them? You need to make sure you incorporate that.
Sorry, I don't play by your rules, but there's not one, because one always comes with the opposite.
Okay.
See, it's a coin with two faces. So, for example, the founder I mentioned before of that DeFi protocol, I think he's way smarter than a guy like me. Okay, when I meet him, I'm almost scared because his brain is faster than my computer, So, okay, but he doesn't know he's smart, so he's humble, you see?
Right.
So you need those two together, which means for him, the ability to push very fast on the product, the market and everything, but be clever enough to understand that he has to rely on a few other people with different expertise. And he's open enough to work with people who are less clever than him, but who can compensate some of his lacking in terms of expertise or even human qualities, So he's very good at public speaking, for example. But when you meet him one-to-one, he's so shy, he's getting red, he's sweating. So he cannot do one-to-one business, but you can put him on a stage and he's just a showman, you see, so, but he knows that. So when he has to do deals with people, he sends another guy.
Interesting.
When he has to do deals in another continent, he sends a woman that is very good at understanding cultures and getting the best out of those conversations for the company, you know. So,
Okay.
so if you ask me the quality, yeah, probably this, you know. Of course, you need to be smart enough to innovate, to do something, to understand what you do, but you also need to be smart enough to understand where you should let other people intervene while still checking on them, you know.
Right.
I would say that.
And also humble. You mentioned humble. That was interesting for me, but I think it's a good quality in any social interaction or like any business, any position.
Yeah, this I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. You have a lot of big ego assholes that are succeeding, you know. So, but with the clients I have and the people I know, yeah, usually if they are not humble, life will make them humble at one point. So you can have a snapshot of their success now, but maybe you see them in 2 years and it's not the same anymore. And yeah. So sooner or later, probably life will make you humble anyway. So yeah.
What is like a red flag or like a bad reason to start a Web3 company in the current cycle? Like this current period, like with AI, with this bubble, current economics.
I mean, just because you know the tool and you have to tool, it's not necessary to build a company around that tool, you know? So many people, they have, you know, they become expert in blockchain, for example. And then they think, okay, I'm an expert in blockchain, then I can start a business in Web3 or, you know. But it has nothing to do, you know. Again, it's better to go from the needs of the market that you spot and then build around that. And if you're lucky enough to be an expert in blockchain and that project needs blockchain, then yeah, why not? But starting from the fact that you know something, I'm not sure you will find the target, you know, because you I don't know. But this is more like philosophy, you know, bottom up, top down, you know. You can have a bottom up mindset or top down, you know. So if you have the knowledge and then you try to implement it, you know, but where you put the roots, you know, you don't know where to plant it, you know.
Okay.
So the people I've seen who build massive companies in Web3, they saw a hole on the market and they built around it, you know.
Kind of the same thing that usually works for business. If you don't see the hole, maybe it's not the right solution.
Yeah, the hole, or you improve something that is existing, or you deliver faster, you know, or you cheat. Okay. This is a third way, you cheat, you know. But you know, you take shortcuts, you burn places. That's also another way. But yeah, so I can take the company I work for now, DEDGE Security. They saw a hole on the market, but they also saw a hole on the security front, you know. And so the two merge, you know, because there's nothing that monitors continuously a smart contract and their environment. So on the technical side, there is a hole. Okay. But then there is a hole on the market also. And
sweet spot.
Yeah, so then it's worth launching a company, you know, because you can use what you know, which is, for example, the two founders of my company. They have like 20 years of experience in Web2, you know. Okay. And so they understand clearly the pain points of the clients, because they've seen a lot of situation and everything, and they saw that a lot of situation they found in Web2, they happen in Web3, you know. So they translated the experience into the Web3 world, you know. Many people in cybersecurity or security around Web3, they come from the Web3, you know. They didn't see the whole evolution of Web2 and the tools that helped Web2 be more secure, you see? So, so in that sense, it's very good to have people who have that experience and can connect the dots with what's next in Web3, you know? And so, I would suggest the same logic maybe for a Web3 founder, you know? Where can he improve things? Are people willing to pay more for the things he brings because he improves something, you know? Because you can add features to a product, but if nobody wants to pay an extra for those features, then it's a waste of time, you know? Right. So that's usually top-down implementation, and it's what we call sometimes the engineer logic, you know? Add features and features and features, but the features are worth to add only if people are willing to pay for those features, you know? So it's always good to go to the market first and check if people are willing to send money to you because you improve the situation on that front, or you add this feature, you see? But this is basic business, Web3, Web2, if you have a shop, or I think it's the same logic in the end. And crypto and Web3, very often we have new words of saying what is in Web2 or TradFi, you know? It's just new words, but the concepts are very often the same. That's why for example, in terms of regulation, most of the regulation coming towards Web3 and crypto, they come from traditional finance, you know? Because you very often you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you know? The way to launder money is the same, but the tools are different, you know?
Right. So it's not about the context, so never it's about the cycle, as long as you understand the market and what your product solves. If it's a whole, if it's an improvement, a feature that it brings to the market. It doesn't matter like what's the current state of the market, as long it fits the puzzle. Am I wrong?
You know, I don't know if you sailed before, but when you're on a sailing boat, you leave the shore, you want to go to an island, you know? You still go to the island. The question is, the environment is the wind, for example. According to the wind, you might go this way or that way, and it will take you more time, but sooner or later you will reach the island, you know? It's just that the context makes you choose another path to reach that island, you know, and a different speed. And so for your project is a bit the same. If you're on a cycle, for example, I saw that when the Bitcoin was very high, the founders were very, very high too also, but they were also launching, like crazy, you know, because you have the psychological effect, and also, the investors are more keen to put money and fuel into your project. But I think you should not be dependent on those movements too much.
Right.
Because you build steadily on your side, and sooner or later it will click with the cycle. You know, the opportunity is is mostly preparation, and as soon as you prepare well, you improve the odds of success by having the momentum when the cycle is good, you know. So I think you shouldn't focus too much on external factors like that for a start. If not, it's more like an opportunity business and one shot, or burning fast, or raising fast. But this is a different type of approach that I don't have, and that I didn't see much happening. What I saw is founders, even 2017 for some, you know, already from the little elements of technology they knew back then, they could foresee what would happen 5 years later. And so they started to learn, and then build, and then fail a bit, and then rebuild, and then fail, and then, you know, and then change company, pivot and everything. And suddenly the cycle is good, the product is good, the team is good. and they are there. I know a RegTech, for example, so a company dealing with helping crypto companies to be compliant. I think they didn't sell anything for almost 5 years. But they were sure that one day the regulator will think about implementing something. They were just wrong on where it would happen first. So they were based in Europe, but it happened first in Asia. The first regulators who imposed this type of tools they were in Asia. So the guys in Europe, they sent a team in Asia to sell, like crazy. So, but they took 5 years to build, and then the solution was spot on because they expected the regulators maybe to enforce this kind of solution 2 years earlier. But this you never know. So this is the cycle that you mentioned also. It could be the same. You cannot predict the cycle. The only thing you can predict is how you work on your project, your offer, how long you can last till it will skyrocket,
Yeah. Amazing. Olivier, this is a lot of insight, a lot of practical suggestions, and most definitely people that are watching this interview will find some ideas, if not all of them, in some regards, improving their journey as Web3 founders. It was really a pleasure to have this discussion with you, and really appreciate it.
I hope I can help. Thanks again for you to welcome me and host me.